Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mike Cushman. Hey, where's the person to the right? Hmm. Okay, so he's late as usual. Late as usual. I think we're going to need to dock his pay and find a new presenter. Hey, what about that? Okay, so welcome everybody to Talking Niagara. It is Tuesday, June 24th, and this is your local discussion about news and views impacting Niagara Falls and the region today. And the first story here we didn't get to yesterday. Northern Ontario communities have been declared an emergency after severe storm damage swept through the region. Now, in the day and age when we've been talking about Manitoba and fires and other places west of here and fires, now we've got storm damage in Northern Ontario. When we were kind of lining up, I guess, for fire damage. Well, I suppose in no damage is ever good, but I guess that's just what the way it happens. Sometimes we end up with fires, we end up with floods. It's just part of the way we are. And the funny thing is, we've had up until now, probably we've had a wet June. Now all of a sudden we're in a heat wave. Toronto, by the way, Toronto. Okay, we've got a comment. So, yep. Good morning, Betty. Dave will be with us in a minute. He's just woken up late. So, while I was talking about northern communities, there is it ever hot? Yeah. Well, let's just talk about that as well. And Toronto had its highest temperature in nearly a decade. At 5:10 yesterday, Toronto Pearson recorded 36 degrees, and the previous record for today was 32.8 degrees in 1983. So 36 degrees at Pearson yesterday. And basically, the last time Toronto saw such a high temperature was July 13th, 2016. And the other thing is that the previous record for yesterday was at 32.8 in 1983. So it's beat record highs for quite some time. So, and yesterday, of course, Olivia Chow, about 2 o'clock, said to everybody, stay indoors. And stay indoors is fine, but when you've got, I suppose, even when you've got no cooling, probably it's a wise choice. At least you stay out of this thrashing sun. All right, I'm gonna move on. Yep. Good morning, Betty. Yep. Good morning, Betty. Good morning, Mike. As ever, our faithful listeners that we love and listen to all the time. Okay, so moving on. Niagara Health is here we go. Dave, we've just been talking about the weather.
Pop-ups all over the place crowd me. I couldn't click on. As soon as I tried to click on, something got in the way.
Okay, we were just talking about floods in Northern Ontario and record temperatures in Toronto.
All right. Okay. Come on, global warming.
Well, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, we've had also. We'll have to report on the fires up in Deer Lake. I don't know how they're going now, but it seemed to be. It was looking like it might be the biggest fire season in Ontario, and at Deer Lake, I heard from a firefighter up there, a forest firefighter. That's his job.
Yeah.
That I heard secondhand from him. He's a friend of my son. He says Deer Lake is a indigenous community, but they all had to flee. but they left their dogs behind because what else are you gonna do? And the dogs have been killing and eating one another.
Hmm.
He witnessed a pup getting a young one being killed by an older one. And
Yeah, but we had in northern Ontario, in Bonfield and Calvin, there was a violent storm passed through late on Saturday night, leaving many roads flooded and downed trees and trapped residents in its wake. So I was just commenting upon we got floods at the time when we normally get fire season.
Well, the fires are still going up in northwest Ontario, and you're talking about it was a downdraft or a hurricane or a small
a weather event of some kind.
Tornado. Yeah, where we were. A lot of northern communities up around Mattawa, not far from Ottawa, they had huge winds. Now they could be what's called a downdraft, I think it is, or down push, and or a tornado. I haven't got my phone on right now, so I gotta look that up. Yeah, they did considerable damage up north. So we have very unusual weather patterns. To get violent storms up in northern Ontario during the summertime is not anything new. Because when you get a thunderstorm up there, man, you ever get a thunderstorm? Oh boy!
Yeah.
I mean, it's like go ahead.
I was going to say, moving on from the weather.
Oh yeah.
Right. As in Niagara Health is introducing an emergency room ambassador. And basically what they're saying is that one of the problems with emergency rooms is everybody's so drab and dull and won't even smile and won't give you a good, won't give you a good reception. So they're smiling and not smiling, they're horrible,
Most of the time they're overworked and they're grumpy.
That's part of the problem, isn't it? I can see even the emergency department ambassador becoming overworked and grumpy.
Yeah, you hear the same old stories about people in Emerge all the time. Like you hear that same old story where they're just like in pain. Somebody's got to bring them a blanket. They pace. They wait for 8 hours, and then somebody gives them a Tylenol, sends them home, and they come back the next day.
Yeah.
So so our hospital system's pathetic. I mean, once they're in there, they're not bad. I don't know.
It's the waiting in the queue. Mind you,
yes.
I'm not even sure that I'm not even sure that any form of amusement when you've been sitting in that queue for 6 hours is going to amuse me. I'm going to be saying, okay, so why are they sending you? Why are they not treating me?
So what is she going to do? Or in this particular case, it's a woman, but any ambassador, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
What do they say they're going to do?
Well, and part of that, when I was younger,
what are they going to do?
Well, I was going to say, when I was young, I was living with a couple of nurses, and those nurses basically said part of their training was to smile. All right. They had to smile at everybody who came into the thing, no matter how bad they felt, even if it was after a 14-hour shift.
Yeah.
All right. And Mike's right. Also, there's being one doctor on a whole emergency ward doesn't work, work very much. And having an emergency department ambassador, I'd prefer to have a second doctor than an emergency ambassador.
Well, basically, she's just an advice person. She goes around and tells people which way, this way or that way.
Yeah.
But Do you really think that's going to be so that's another paycheck they're paying out, but it's not somebody that's actually fixing somebody or somebody that's actually
Yeah,
helping somebody.
that's
Um,
exactly my point. I'd prefer to pay for an extra doctor than I would for this person.
so what she does is just kind of listens to them, and it
Yeah.
says she lets patients know what's going on behind the scenes as they're waiting, and she does not shy away from people who appear aggravated. Well, that's kind of good. You can say, well, we've got X amount of people doing this. There's,
Yeah.
so while you're waiting for 8 hours, you get a play-by-play of what's happening in the emergency.
But
You know,
again, I've been in that situation where I've been waiting for 7 or 8 hours, and at the same time, what you've got is a couple of nurses sitting behind the screen at the triage or the intake desk, just sitting there chatting amongst each other about the weather and knitting circles and whatever nurses chat about. I'm not trying to put into that conversation what they do chat about, right? Couldn't they be the ambassador who walks around and tells everybody what the heck is going on?
well, one thing she does to her, she keeps an eye on the patient's condition to see if they're deteriorating. Well, she has to have pretty skills because if somebody's been in there for 6 hours and wants to get ahead of the line, there's going to be a lot of acting going on.
Oh yeah,
So if everyone knows that part of her job is to sort of evaluate what's going on there in the emergency room, I could see a lot of academy awards going on out there for people to get to the top of the list. You know,
yeah. Well,
like
the point
like the
being,
old Red Fox. I'm coming, Elizabeth, and
well,
clamps onto his
the
chest.
point being is when you go into triage, that's the person who determines whether you've got how serious your problem is, because you
Yeah,
can go
but
into
that's not
triage.
what she's doing.
Pardon me?
But that's not what she's doing.
No, exactly. And but again, one of the issues about going into triage is that I had an eye situation, an eye injury, and eye injury apart from heart and brain injuries, is probably the highest priority.
Yeah,
But
it'll
yeah,
be
it took
right
me
up there.
7 hours.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
know.
yeah. Betty's saying, bring back the nuns to help with the nursing. No, I didn't like the nuns. They're always trying to talk religion to you.
Well, look, I'd be glad to hear some religion if they could speed things up. If they know what they're doing.
I think we need people to speed things up. No, why didn't I like the nuns? Because they're always talking religion to you.
Well, if I'll listen to a lot of religion as long as they're fixing me. So that
Yeah,
doesn't really bother me. We need more doctors. We need more nurses. We need a better healthcare system. It's just
yeah,
not working very well.
yeah. And that's part of the problem we got. I'm not saying there isn't a need for a person to be an ambassador, but I think we've already got the people on staff already. We don't need to employ new people for that role.
No.
All right.
Uh,
Just send some of those nurses that are part of the intake system out to go and be that ambassador. They're sitting half the time. They're sitting there chatting with one another, when in fact one of them could take a turn just touring around, figuring out what the current state of the emergency room is, and informing people about where they are in the queue. It would be much, even if I'm waiting an hour, for me to know that, hey, unless somebody more important comes in, I'm first in the queue, is good to know.
yeah.
you know um
Well, we kind of flogged the old ambassador
yeah.
here. With what else we gonna do about her? I don't know. Anyway, it sounds like it's an interesting idea, but it's another paycheck you have to pay. She doesn't seem to be super qualified medically. She's a PSW. Just give her an indication of. So how many of these bastards we're going to have, I don't know. But if you could take the tension away from the emergency room, that wouldn't be bad.
Yeah. All right. So moving on. Where were we? Okay. So moving on. There's this article you put out about alcohol harming society, and this is something that was actually done by the Star. It's an opinion piece from the Star, and it's saying one of the problems is when you look at some recent events, it's the alcohol impairment that has ruined many of the recent events. Like a former British soldier was sentenced for delivering 3 lethal blows to the head in Winnipeg, in a Winnipeg bar. In the Toronto bar in 23. London is expected to deliver a verdict on a July 24 case of former hockey star charged with 2018 sexual assault because of alcohol, and a trip to Victoria Day fireworks in Milton turned tragic when 3 stabbings occurred due again to alcohol. So they're concentrating on these tragic events and saying that this is actually part of a greater problem we have in society with alcohol. And there's a professor of public health and social policy at the University of Victoria in British Columbia that is talking about alcohol as being given a free pass when it comes to changes in policy and public opinion, and he's saying that needs to stop.
Yeah, no. Normally, when I first read that article, when I first saw that article, I thought it was going to be an article of the type that we lately see about alcohol. It used to be the idea that if you have 1 shot of booze or 2 glasses of wine or a couple of beers every day, it was okay. However, they have found out that that's not the case at all. That even a couple of beers can be detrimental to your health. We're not talking about alcoholism here. We're just talking about drinking a modest amount of alcohol. Last night I had 2 cans of Guinness. That's not supposed to be good for you, because it's beer.
Lots of irony.
That's what I thought it was going to be. That's what I thought it was going to be, the article. But I was surprised to find out that they turned right to the societal problems with alcohol, and it tweaked the point with me, because I was at a lacrosse game on last Thursday, I think it was, and no, Friday, and there was a guy, and it was a junior B game, lacrosse game. So these are young fellas. They play a really good brand of lacrosse, but one of the guys behind me, obviously, you sell beer there. Obviously, somebody behind me got right into it. They started calling people losers and really freaking out and getting all pissed off at a junior B lacrosse game. Like, the guy kind of lost it. Obviously,
people losers on a junior game.
Junior B, yeah. And he was losing it. He was getting angry at some of the fans. Probably think the visiting fans, or maybe he was a visiting fan. I don't know. But it seemed to be so totally out of place.
Yeah.
Now, I had a beer there. My friends had a beer, just one, as we watched the game.
Yeah.
But this guy kind of just lost it. I haven't seen that kind of action for a very long time. So this article is about societal problems with alcohol. And
I'm always been in favor. It's like I don't drink very much. I drink maybe 1 or 2 beers a week, maybe 1 or 2 shots of whiskey or something a month.
Yeah, this this article makes
But I
the
always do it
excuse
at home. I do my alcohol consumption at home.
yeah, so nobody can see you being a jerk.
No, I'm not a jerk. I made the decision when I made the decision well before passing my test, driving test. I would not drink and drive, and that's an important thing. Once you make that decision that you're not going to drink and drive, it basically means that, for example, I couldn't go out for a night in St. Catharines and then come back, and then drive home.
Well,
If I go out,
apparently you're okay. Go ahead.
yeah, if I go out, I've got to not drink.
All right. We should tell everybody too that the drinking, the alcohol sobriety tests, and they're only permitting 0.05 now. They permitted 0.08 prior to this, and they would make you park your car at 0.05. But now they are you're going to get a ticket at 0.05. So if you have one beer, you're going to be on the edge.
Yeah, I think it should be lower. I agree with it being lower.
Anyway,
too much bad impact upon drinking in society, and too much. One of these examples that was given in this article was actually a person who drove drunk somewhere to give. Yeah, a 19-year-old driver from Georgetown was charged with 3 counts of impaired driving while causing death.
Yeah, we had that motorcyclist killed right here on the corner.
Yeah,
just a block away from me here last week, and I wouldn't doubt if alcohol was involved in that one, but I haven't read anything further. Alcohol is probably the most dangerous and most expensive drug that we have out there, and someone makes a good point in the article. Adam Shirk, this is a scientist and professor of public health and society policy of University of Victoria, wrote that a socially acceptable and culturally mythologized drug, alcohol, has received almost free pass when it comes to changes in society and public opinion. We zero on fentanyl because it causes death pretty quick. And it causes, a lot of problems instantly, cocaine, all those other things. But alcohol is more of a slow burn. It takes you out little by little. It could make you a dangerous person quickly. It removes your inhibitions. It causes you anger. So the societal cost of alcohol is incredible. And but we've heard that over and over, haven't we? Our whole lives. Alcohol is the one drug that gets the free pass. Alcohol is the thing that causes more misery in our society than all other drugs put together.
But again, I'm not going to be one of these that supports any ban on alcohol. I do support that. I do support education and understanding about how how alcohol should be used better.
Should it be banned from indigenous reserves? It should be banned for indigenous people?
Why?
Because it on the reserves, because it's caused a mountain of problems there. Now I'm being a little bit facetious here, but alcohol is probably the number one problem on most native reserves. Well, what anyone has told me, but if people can't get that, they start sniffing gasoline and stuff like that. The fact of the matter is, people want out of their situation. It's so dire. They have nothing to do. You have suicides up the yin yang on reserves. One of the problems, of course, one of the things that keep precipitating problems is alcohol on indigenous reserves. So should we ban them on indigenous reserves?
Yeah. Okay. Mike makes the point of robberies, rapes, violence, domestic disputes, money issues are all associated with drinking. Right? And it's true that those sort of crimes have gone up when you've got drinking problems. Right? We have a wine law in Canada that promotes drinking and driving.
We do.
Um,
What wine the hell is that? Mike?
I don't know about that one.
What?
Mike says he quit drinking at 27. Well, good for you, Mike. All right. And Becky says, I think it's the law back home that's not just the cause. That's what was said way back when so they could steal their land.
I suppose so, but I'm when I talk to people that actually work on the reserves and my mother many years ago, like you have to go back like 70 years, more than 70 years, when she went with a doctor to reserves. Yeah, you always find that problem of alcohol. When
It has been documented.
when my son was living in Thunder Bay, there was all kinds of uh, indigenous people under the influence of alcohol, way disproportionate to that the white folks. So it's a problem of despondency, people who are not feeling mentally well, or they don't have a job or something. Now, it also goes into the fact that alcohol is the main cause of disability and premature death. It causes health problems, including liver disease, cardiovascular issues, and several types of cancers and mental health disorders. The Canadian Substance Abuse and Harm Study found that in 2020, that's 5 years ago, in Ontario, alcohol had a greater health system burden and societal cost than any other substance, and was second leading cause of death after tobacco.
What Mike is saying, open wine bottles in restaurants, you can take them to the restaurant and then you can take it with you.
Yes, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're driving.
Yeah.
If you have if you got a group of people going out for dinner, you might have a dedicated driver. So I went to see a band on on the weekend. I was there for a couple hours. I had one beer. Would that have impaired me?
Arguably, it could, depends upon who you are.
Yeah. Well,
and
somebody like if I was a brand new drinker, maybe it would have an effect. To me, it was just something to wash down the nice cold beer on a hot day. But
yeah. Well, actually, the nice cold beer on a hot day is actually problematic, because in fact that's one of the areas which on a hot day like it has been the last couple of days, you're well advised to stay away from beer, because alcohol actually alcohol has a particular problem with heat.
Yeah, I actually if I was indoors in coming from outside being hot and coming indoor, and I would get a cold beer. But
Fair.
No, I never drink outside that much in the sun.
Yeah.
No, as a matter of fact, it doesn't go down well with me. I might be able to have one.
If you are sitting outside, if you're sitting outside on the deck, on a deck of a bar or something like that, drinking beer in staunching heat like we've had the last couple of days, it will dehydrate you.
Well, I just looked it up. It still says it's over 80 impaired. So it's still 80 parts per million or whatever that is. I thought it was going to be down to 50 parts per
I
million.
think they should bring it down. I'm very much for favor of bringing it down.
Well, they'll make you park the car if you're 50, like
Yeah.
0.5. So that is really just maybe for a guy like me, maybe a beer and a half.
Well, that's the difference. You see, that's the difference. Is that for a guy like you, you're quite a big guy. You talk about.
I'm a
Well,
pretty
let's
big,
talk
muscular dude, man.
I don't know about muscular, but yeah. But Christy Hales, right? She's a very slight woman.
No, who's she?
No, yeah, okay, you don't know. Okay, I was trying to use an example of a lady that I knew to be quite slight. She's probably only about 5'3". She used to be a DJ at 4680. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. She reminds me of my mum. But my mum was very, very small and very, very slight and could hardly take any alcohol.
Yes, there are quite a number of very slight women, and it's very important that any woman realize that alcohol affects them more than men.
Well, I think remember, women tend to be smaller, and it's about percentage of body mass. I think more than
no.
anything else.
Women are.
I think it's body mass.
Women are affected by alcohol more than men, and that I'm not saying that as a cultural thing. I'm saying that as a scientific thing. That's come up in a few articles. I think we might even reported it on the show a few years ago. The scientists, I believe, all things given, you take a 120-pound woman and take a 120-pound man, and the women will be affected more by the same alcohol than
men tend to be larger than women on almost all occasions anyway.
Yeah, but pound for pound,
10 to 20% larger than women, and I think it's just body.
That's called sexual dimorphism. But if you take pound for pound, a 120-pound woman and a 120-pound man, and the woman will be affected more.
Okay,
the female body responds to alcohol different than a male body, and so women actually get drunker quicker. Generally speaking,
okay,
that's what.
But I've seen some women drink men under the table, right?
You're not listening. I'm talking about science here. Science says, right? Science says, yeah, sure. If a woman has been packing it away and knows how to pack it away, I've seen a couple of women that can really throw it back too. Yeah. Generally speaking, though, pound for pound, and listen to this, it's science. Women are affected by alcohol more than men. An ounce of, like, you take a 120-pound woman and a 120-pound man, and that woman will get a little drunker than the 120-pound man.
Anyway, moving on. In the same vein, I guess corporate sponsors are now walking away from the Toronto Pride event. So now there's like nearly $1 million gap on how they're going to fund this event.
Well, first of all, why are they walking away? Why do you think they're walking away? Yeah, there goes Peter. He's got a telephone call.
Hello.
Okay, so the Pride Day is losing its sponsorship. Corporate sponsors are moving away from it. Is that because there is a kind of a frown over DEI these days? Is it the fact that diversity, equity, and inclusion is just one of those things that's run its course, and we're just tired about hearing it? I think corporations are after what happened to Bud Light, nobody wants to have that happen, or Target. Target and Bud Light both took a complete beating in their sales. Bud Light has never recovered after sponsoring Dylan Mulvaney, but that was fairly rare. Now the sponsorships are pulling out of out of the gay pride thing.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't sponsor any gay pride thing. I don't think I sponsor any. I might sponsor sick children. I might sponsor the local theater group, whatever. I might sponsor the music festival. But why sponsor a bunch of adult gay LS things? Can't they sponsor themselves?
Yeah.
Don't they have enough money?
Well, actually, that is one of the things that we. By the way, sorry about the call, and I have to give kudos, and I'm going to give them a little plug on air. H2 Only have basically responded to my. I called them late after 5 o'clock, and they called me early this morning to say, "Hey, we got a fix for your water cooler problem."
Oh, good.
Right. So hey, that's good. I like that kind of customer service. Right. Okay, so basically, yeah, that's one of the questions about, you see, I've got a few gay friends, and most of them don't go to things like gay pride because they just find the whole thing just to be too much of a kind of a corporate event nowadays.
Here you go. I just got to step back to the other article. Yes, women can be more vulnerable to the effects of alcohol than men. Biological and physiological differences, including lower body water content and reduced alcohol metabolizing enzymes, can lead women to experience higher blood alcohol concentrations after consuming the same amount of alcohol as men. This can result in women being more susceptible to alcohol-related harm, including liver disease, certain cancers, and brain damage. Well, we're drinking alcohol. It's hard to tell.
Brain damage is part of alcohol anyway, isn't it? But anyway, yeah. Okay, so that what's essentially started with pride, what essentially started way back when was as a demonstration of, hey, wouldn't it be nice for these people, for gay people to get more support in society, has become kind of overwhelmingly run by corporate sponsors. And hasn't that kind of changed the whole essence of what gay pride events were all about?
Well, gay pride originally was on Halloween, and I remember I found that objectionable because I found it objectionable because they are intruding themselves upon a child's holiday, and I think they got the message that wasn't a good day to have gay pride. They usually had it in October, which is, and they switched to the summertime or wherever it is now, probably because for any reason.
Well,
for the
at
weather.
The moment, it's
one thing. The weather's a lot better.
And
October 31st can be pretty cold and rainy.
Yeah, and June has been declared as Gay Pride Month, right?
Well,
so I don't know who made that.
Who declared it?
Right?
I kind of object to. Okay, we're going to impose this on you. June is Gay Pride Month. There's nothing you can do about it.
I don't know who.
I didn't vote for
that. I don't know who made that decision. But that's generally why you generally see more pride events in June than any other time.
I think you're going to get a lot less support for the pride groups now. Probably outside the pride community, and that is because it's already been done. Basically, the last couple of Pride days, you've had a lot of people running around naked. And I don't know a lot about people, you've had some. So I think when you get the corporate sponsors, they're not going to be too happy to be associated with something like that.
Yeah.
And remember the Pride thing. Yeah, if it's a nice parade and all that, that would, it's fine. But who's going to go support it now? Uh, I guess for a long time it was a novelty, but if there's a pride parade close by, it really isn't much interest to me. You know, if it's if there's a Sons of Italy parade, it's not much interest to me. I'm not going to go see that either. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
I know
not
what you
something,
mean. Yeah,
and it's not like the pride thing does not interest me in one bit. I've got nothing against it, but it doesn't
well,
interest me.
one
And
of
if
one of
if gay people were being beat up and slagged in society, yeah, I might protest on their behalf, but um, no, I got no interest in the pride parade.
I get it, and actually, I know some gay men who have no interest in pride parades either. You know,
Yeah,
they're comfortable with themselves. They don't want to go out doing anything, demonstrating their gayness, if you like.
yeah. All these years of being in the closet was pretty hard to have a parade in the closet, and I guess they just get acclimatized to that.
I guess so. I guess so. But I'm not again. Again, I don't think people are against gay pride things, but I just think the whole corporate sponsorship has gotten out of hand. Needs to be dealt with another way.
Well, corporate sponsorship helps with the money that's required,
Yeah,
and I think the trends of society. I think the corporate sponsorship was trying to jump on board. Remember, they don't do this out of the kindness of their heart.
yeah, I
Corporate
know.
sponsorship is there for a reason. This puts our name out there. Uh, this might get if we, if we're a beer company and we sponsor a couple of floats in the gay parade, maybe gay people will drink our beer, that kind of thing. I guess a lot of gay people did drink Budweiser, um, because they sponsored floats in the gay parade, uh, the LGBTQ gay pride thing. But they stopped doing that because of the problem they got in with
Laurie,
Mulvaney.
Laurie makes the point that gay pride is a thing of the past. They have all their rights. Why would companies keep paying to assist something they already have? Money is tight, and they have other issues pending right now than paying for a parade. But
Well, you got a good point there,
Betty says
Lori.
it's not the same, right?
Yeah,
She says gay lesbians never went and screamed to the public. I love women. If she was a woman, not the same.
yeah. It's and really when the whole this is arguable statistics, but when the whole LGBTQ population uh, is about 6% or 6% of the general population. If you're a corporation, how much do you see that making a whole lot of money off of that? You're giving money to a small sector of the population. Uh, so if you want them to drink, uh, Bud Light or whatever your beer brand is, will that make a whole lot of difference?
Yeah,
When you sponsor a gay pride thing, you're doing it so that you can tell the whole world, I'm open minded, and so that you want to drink my beer because we're the open minded beer. But if everybody's kind of tired of all that, um, then are you going to get the same amount of money attracting the LGBT community to drink your brand of beer? Um,
yeah, and
because they
oh,
are such a small segment of the population, will it make a much difference to your bottom line? Because let's face it, that's what it's all about: money making for a sponsorship.
yeah. Well, and sponsorship's always about money making because they make more money out of it than they spend. That's the whole point.
Well, they hope to, or at least put a positive image in everybody's mind, so that when you come to uh, purchasing a product, you might default to them.
Yeah.
kind of thing. So, or product loyalty too. That's another thing that wanted to be established. So we're getting to the point where gay pride is no longer a unique event. It has been thought to be unique for the last 50 years, but right now it's not a very unique event. It is it
Well,
is something
and the
people are
same,
used to.
and it's the same with kind of the Pride event in St. Catharines, where they, a couple of years ago, they put up those security screens and then they stopped the event.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So gay collections of gay or LGBTQ people going to a festival or something that is mostly for them. I don't think anybody should bother them, but if they invite everybody to go to the LGBTQ picnic, well, I'm not going to go. I have no interest. I have nothing in common with them.
Yeah, I get you.
I'm not going to. It's the same thing as I said. Like if they have a picnic for the Sons of Italy, I'm not going to go there. I've got
Yeah,
nothing in common with them. You
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so the next one we've got on our list, St. Catherine's Jewish community recently marked a powerful milestone with the 100th anniversary of the congregation of B'nai Israel, the city's only conservative synagogue. The celebration included a central concert at the local Performing Arts Centre, drawing over 300 attendees and featuring renowned cantors and a Kaisma band. All right. However, the joyful occasion came with a sobering backdrop.
You mean klezmer?
Security.
You mean klezmer?
Sorry, I misread that. Klezmer. Yeah.
Yeah,
Klezmer.
klezmer music. Klezmer music is that really lively music, usually with a lot of clarinet.
Sorry, yeah,
That kind of thing.
it was me misreading. Sorry.
Yeah, klezmer music is like a very fun, lively kind of music. I think it was created in Eastern Europe by the Jewish communities there. Now, so this is pretty good. I put it up there because it's a historical milestone. 100 years old, having and
But the security is the issue that I think a lot of people are concerned about now, right?
yes, oddly enough, but I'll have to remind everybody that it's the security of both Islamic and Jewish sites because there's been a lot of Islamophobia. Now we don't have a lot of powerful spokespeople talking about Islamophobia as we do anti-Semitism, but it's just as real of a thing. We have,
yeah,
there's been a real uptick in Islamophobia. There's been a big uptick in
what they're
anti-Semitism.
Yeah, and what they're saying is Jewish institutions across Canada are taking extra precautions during public events, especially amid rising concerns about anti-Semitism. And while there were no reported incidents, visible security presence underscored this community event.
Well, yeah, I'll talk to that. It is always a security issue being a Jew. Always a security issue.
Yeah.
We saw that a child, I think a girls' school was shot at more than once in Toronto. You have to. There is an undercurrent of anti-Semitism, and I'm not worried about the anti-Semitism that comes from the Middle East. I'm worried about the anti-Semitism that is hard-boiled into European society. The kind of anti-Semitism that comes from European Christendom is the one that what I fear the most, because it is a super racist kind of thing.
Well, pogroms have been going on for more than 1,000 years, and whilst we point most recently, of course, to Nazi treatment of the Jews, it's not the worst treatment, and it's not the only treatment.
Well, we find that there's a lot of residual hate towards black people down in the States too, but lynchings have gone down. You're not going to get black lynchings from whites anymore, but what you still will get is people of European descent taking a shot at Jewish people, or that kind of thing. That keeps popping up over and over again. I remember years ago, I was just horrified by the fact that Jewish tombstones were being knocked over and broken in grave sites.
Yeah.
And like, I think swastikas put on them. I mean, seriously? Yeah. And that exists today. So
actually, one of the most impressive things that I had in my life is my wife's uncle died. He was a really nice guy. I really got on well with him. And of course, I was at his funeral. And while I was there, all his neighbors came trotting in to offer their condolences to the family. Right now, my uncle, of course, being my wife's uncle, he's a Muslim. All the neighbors, all the people in his neighborhood, were all traditional Jews with wearing skull caps, etc.
Yeah.
All right. So they were all coming through, giving their condolences, saying how the community missed Ali.
Yeah, that's what you should do.
Yeah,
and the other way around.
Exactly.
The other way around.
Yeah, exactly. Because that, to them, he was a part of their community, where he was basically, he was a well-known mechanic. He would fix their car.
Yeah.
Always go to Ali, he'll fix it. Right.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you here, it says that they're worried about the antagonism, anti-Semitism caused by the war in Gaza and now in Iran. Yeah. But they remind everybody the Jewish people here had nothing to do with it. That's Israel.
Yeah, that's Israel.
And as far as the suffering of Palestinians, that's Zionism. It doesn't incorporate all Jews. In any case, even if they're Zionists over here, they're not doing anything wrong here. So I don't know. You judge a person for who they are. You really, but unfortunately, with Jewish people, it has been an issue with European Christendom mostly.
Yeah.
Europeans are the ones that put them in the ovens. Europeans are the ones that beat them with sticks during the war.
Yeah. And those images do not go away easily.
No. And so the root of the problem is deep in our society. It's something, I don't know. I never got any of it in my life. I never got any, my parents, I never got anything from anyone I knew about Black people or Jewish people or anything like that. So I was pretty lucky that way. I knew they were different, but I remember my image of Jewish people when I was a kid, because the only ones I saw were I thought they were the same as Italians, but just went to a different church, because the only Jews I had seen were like the Italians I seen, short, grumpy, and bald.
Well, that's probably a racist statement, if anything.
Well, there were always. I remember the image I had in my mind of Jews and Italians were the same thing. They were short, bald, grumpy, middle-aged men.
Well, the funny thing is, it's like, as you know, through my wife, I've got family connections into the Muslim world, but also through somebody else in our family. There's actually they married into the Jewish faith.
Yeah, I've got Jewish
So,
cousins.
so it's kind of one of the things you suddenly remember when somebody says, "Oh, we need to go around and see that particular cousin," and it's like, "Oh yeah, you can't do that on a Friday night because you can't, because you can't impose upon them because Friday night, say, it is the start of the Sabbath, and you can't for that 24 hours from the
Yeah.
Friday at dusk till a Saturday at dusk, you can't impose on people.
Well, yeah. So okay.
You have to remember those protocols, and to not remember those protocols could get you in trouble.
Well, yeah. If you're talking about an observant Jew or an observant Muslim,
Yeah.
observant Hindu, whatever, you have to, and even an observant Christian, depending on what kind of sect they are.
Well, I just knew we couldn't go. I just knew we would tend to, if we were going there, we'd go on a Sunday.
Yeah. Okay.
In fact, actually, when it comes down to religion and prayers and things, as you well know, many Muslims take consider the Friday to be like Sunday.
Yeah, so that's the Friday prayer day, and it was like kind of like it depends. I suppose among Reform Jews, Saturday is their Sunday basically. So you had
Yeah.
Friday for Muslims, Saturday for Jews, Sunday for Christians.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are the Abrahamic faith of the long weekend religions.
Yeah, I think we should have a long weekend. We can celebrate the Islamic Friday.
Yeah,
Well,
so
take it off
I was pretty used to that. I was pretty used to that. In any case, so but basically, this I'm not so worried about the current wave of, and I don't really think a lot of it's anti-Semitism. I think it's anti-Israel, anti-Zionism. It's anti what's happening in Gaza. That it has no more to do with Judaism basically than Islamic terrorists have to do with Islam.
Yes, exactly.
You can compare the Islamic terrorists to the settler movement in a way. We don't consider, like, you wouldn't really, like most Jews really wouldn't even consider them being Jews, basically trying to steal somebody else's land. As a matter of fact, rabbi after rabbi comes on TV bumming out about that. So the fact of the matter that anti-Semitism is just etched into the soul of Europeans, and it's there. It's there. Like I said, I've never really come across it. I've heard lots more dilatory comments against Italians than I ever have against Jews. So
yeah. One thing I have to say, that basically just to remind everybody, the synagogue located at 190 Church Street, the B'nai Israel and Jewish Community Center, and the synagogue there is actually recently received heritage designation from the city to help preserve its legacy and reinforce its role as in the civic and cultural fabric of St. Catherine's.
Yeah. Anyway, we're close to the end here, and I'd just like to say to everybody, apparently we've got some kind of ceasefire. The Iranians would not go back to negotiation tables until the Israelis stop bombing them. So the Iranians made it clear to Trump that this could be a long war if he engaged, and he says, you got to come to the negotiating table. And they said, we will not come to the negotiating table until Israel stops bombing us. They've been saying that for 12 days. Well, I guess Trump got on the phone and he convinced Netanyahu to stop bombing. The Iranians have also agreed to stop bombing, so we may really have got a ceasefire. I don't know if it's going to solve anything, but at least it will. At least people will stop dying.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that puts people back on the negotiating table.
I wish one of the conditions was Israel stop murdering people. They killed another 50 people a few days ago trying to get food. So
in Gaza.
Gaza, yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody seemed to be turning their way. And this is also a reminder that Gaza still goes on.
Well, and the worst of it is that the worst of this, as far as I can see, is that there's many in Israel that are taking the stance of they had to attack Iran because of Iran's financial support for Hamas.
I think mostly they're worried about. I think they want to destabilize the regime because it's the potential rivals of Israel were Syria, which had a very strong army, Iraq, which had a very strong army, and Libya, that was rich enough to support armies of one kind, but had the potential of growing. The idea was to destabilize all of them. So Iraq is just a mess. It's basically three countries in one. So it'll never become a military power again. Syria, it'll be 50 years before they become a military power again. Libya, it's split in two. So all these countries that were potential threats to Israel have now been destabilized and defused. I think that was basically the real reason behind all of that. I didn't anticipate the Iranians attacking the Americas, as I said yesterday. However, I do remember that someone saying they'll probably do a same thing as they did after Soleimani. Tell them we're going to shoot our missiles at this base, just to let you know that we could do it anytime we wanted to. And that kind of scared Trump a bit. He didn't want to get locked into a long, long war. Plus the idea that Iranians would wake up their sleeper cells in the United States. I think it was just too much for Trump. So he phoned Netanyahu and told him to stop bombing.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that brings some sanity to the situation.
Oh, God, I hope it's over. You know? I mean, people are dying. People are dying in Tel Aviv, dying in Haifa, dying in Tehran. People that have nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Total innocence, yeah. And especially when you consider that with the state of the art of drones, which were doing most of the bombing in any of these events, drones can target people much more effectively than old-fashioned bombers can.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just missiles and all that. I don't know. And what did it all do? Nobody knows whether or not they actually hit the supplies of refined uranium.
Mm.
You know, so
all right.
You know what you're going to get? You're going to get the IRCGA again. You're going to get the same deal that Obama gave to Iran, and that's what Trump is going to do for Iran. The same deal is going to come up. It's going to have a different name. It's just like NAFTA, right? NAFTA, Trump didn't like it, but when he renegotiated, it was almost the same. But he called it the USMCA. Well, the IRCGA or whatever that was that Obama negotiated with Iran, the inspectors, that you're going to get something almost exactly the same as that.
Yeah, exactly. And with a country the size of Iran, population-wise, and everything, you need something. You actually need that. They need to create nuclear power in order to sustain as a sustainable power, but at the same time, international community needs the assurance that they won't be upgrading those power rods, etc.
They should never have started. They should never have started to refine it past 10%.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a bluff that backfired on them.
Yeah.
Anyway, without further ado, I bid you do. Remember Gaza and pray for peace. Maybe we'll get some.
Yeah. Thank you.